guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Karen Breaks Into My Home, Locks Me Out and Refuses to Leave. I was living with my husband in a house that had more rooms than we needed. We were lucky to get the house on a good market, and at the beginning actually were living in it with another married couple. They moved out though, and we were left with the house for just the two of us. We had the great idea of renting out one of the bedrooms. This way we could make a little cash for space we weren't really using and help out people that were looking for a room. The man that we ended up renting to seemed like a pretty normal guy at first. The interview went great. He had steady looking income from his information, and he was willing to pay exactly what we were asking. We took him on as a renter, and for the first couple of months it went great. We barely noticed he was even around because he had his own bathroom, so he really only came into the main areas to use the kitchen to come and go out the front door. He seemed to mainly want a place to sleep and hang around on his days off. After the first couple of months without issues is when things started to get a little messed up. I was the first to notice a very weird smell coming from his room. I had no idea how to ask him about it, so my husband did, and he said that he would clean up the room and get rid of the smell. It never went away though, and honestly started getting worse. We wanted to go inside and see what he was doing, but he did not want to let us into the room. He even installed his own locks without getting any kind of permission. He had locks before, but we had a master key in case we really needed to get inside. While I understand when you rent a room to people they have a right to privacy, I could tell this went beyond that. The smell was too bad, and we had to go inside and make sure that he wasn't going to cause a problem where the entire house would end up smelling or getting rats or something. It was in the contract that we had the right to enter under these circumstances. My husband broke down the door one day when he was at work, and we went inside. It was horrible in there, and I will just give you a basic picture. There was old food all over the floor that I thought would have been the smell. Instead, the smell was actually drugs that he seemed to be using the room for as his center of operations. It was clear he was selling drugs and that his actual job was a front and didn't actually exist. My guess is the bad food was meant to try and mask the drug smell. We were not happy and immediately gave notice to kick this guy out of our house. We were not about to get arrested for having a drug dealer get us killed or arrested. We kicked him out, and honestly he seemed to go pretty quietly. What I didn't know at the time is that was a scam. A couple days later we were coming home from dinner and our keys didn't seem to be working on the front door. It was strange, and lights were on that I know we turned off. A head pops out of one of the windows, and it is none other than our ex-renter. He had broken into the house and then changed the locks to keep us out. I was in total shock while my husband was beyond angry and having a screaming match from the front lawn up to the window where the renter had holed himself up. Husband. Get out of my house. Ex-renter. You don't deserve a house like this. You didn't appreciate what you had and even ended up trying to give up one of the rooms. To me he wasn't making any sense, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had taken some of the drugs before this conversation started. Husband. You were evicted and have no rights to break into my house and change the locks. Ex-renter. I had a contract and you illegally kicked me out of my property. You don't want to let me keep the room I deserve, so I am going to take the entire house that you don't deserve. Meanwhile I am calling the police, telling them what happened and that we needed somebody to come and get him out. Squatter rights can be very confusing, and I know people have issues with it. The thing is that since he actually moved out fully a couple of days before, he wasn't considered squatting. He just broke into the house, so that is what the police were considering it, a very odd break-in with the person still inside of the house. We told them the whole story of us renting a room to him only to find out that he was dirty and seemed to be dealing drugs. Just a note, we did file a report about the drugs after we evicted him. The police busted down the door and ran upstairs to go and get him. We were told to stay back, so we didn't see anything, but I heard a lot of yelling and cursing on his end about how this is his room, and he has rights. I guess he did have rights because they started reading them to him right there when they placed him under arrest for breaking into our house. It got weirder because he tried to sue us for wrongful eviction, and that put a pause on his charge for breaking and entering. We provided the court with the contracts and the photo evidence of what the state of the room was like. On paper it was a cut-and-dry eviction, and he was told that we had the right to keep his security deposit for the damages of the smell. This also meant his other case for breaking into the house could continue. He was guilty of course and ended up having to pay us to change the locks again and to replace the doors the police had to kick in. The drug issue had nothing to do with us, so I don't really know what happened to him in regard to that. We ended up getting the money we needed and fixed the house up. We also decided that we were never going to rent a room out again because we didn't want to be put in a situation like that. My husband suggested taking out a restraining order so that if he ever tried to come near or in the house again he was going to end up facing much worse consequences. I agreed with him, but we are lucky enough that we have never seen that man again. I hope I never do because I feel like either my husband or I will want to punch him right in the face. The next story is entitled Dog Owner Who Thinks the World Must Change to Accommodate His Laziness. So I'm going to share something about last Wednesday that happened because of a bad and super entitled dog owner. We have 2 untrained, crazy chihuahuas as neighbors. Those dogs live to bark at their door and to wait for something to pass by for them to bark at. His human doesn't leash them. Ever. I almost hit them with my car more than once because they are reactive to the world and every time they see a car they run barking in its direction. Those dogs attack their target. They don't just bark. Those dogs are taken out of the house 3 times a day and placed in community garden for 3 minutes, just enough for them to make their necessities, all while this owner scroll on its phone. The rest of time they are locked at home. Wednesday we were leaving home and they were surprised unleashed. My Shepsky Ellie who always ignore them was in a bad mood because she hasn't been able to play since her surgery last week. She can now, and she wasn't her nicest self I must admit. What happened was we were leaving and the chihuahuas ran towards us. One of them started to bite Ellie's legs. She's fine, they are so tiny no harm was done, and she just lifted her front body from the ground and with all of her weight stepped on them. They were hurt. I could see that one of them is really hurt, bet on shoulder fracture or severe dislocation. Their owner reaction? Scream at me that their dogs were in the public for your information, street first, and once I saw them I should have gone back inside and wait for our turn to walk. There are turns now? No, you idiot. Your dog reactivity is not my responsibility, it's your problem to manage. No one needs to change their life to accommodate your laziness. If you don't want to train your dogs you need to live and accept the consequences and they are only on you. He just lifted the dogs from the floor and went back inside completely ignoring their pain screams. One of those dogs was in clearly need of immediate veterinary assistance. That wasn't his human priority. Saw them again at night. One of them walking unleashed. The one who got hurt on his owner hands probably because he is unable to walk. He learned nothing. I have no words. How entitled can you be to walk in public places with unleashed and untrained dogs and still think it's the world which must adapt to you? The next story is entitled Old Woman Demanded I Move My Car When She Was the One Who Parked So Close, She Couldn't Open Her Door. This happened around 5 years ago. And I was reminded of it after seeing a short post someone else recently made. As I've said before, the state I live in is full of entitled people. So I've seen them often enough that I can be completely indifferent to them, unless they're directly interacting with me. I wouldn't say I'm super witty or anything. But you really don't have to be if you just don't give these people an inch so they can try to take a mile. I don't remember what day of the week it was. But I was off work for my hour lunch break and eating in my car. I'd either gotten a burger or Subway sandwich as I generally get one or the other for lunch, then and now. But for the sake of speeding things up, I'll just say it was a burger because I can't remember what I was really eating that day. I'd gotten some food and parked near the local supermarket to eat. But the store parking lot was super busy that day. So about 80% of the spaces were full, at least. But I didn't care. I just wanted to eat my burger in peace and watch YouTube on my phone. Well, I just started eating when a beat-up old sedan parked next to me. I didn't think anything of it till there was a fast and loud knocking at my passenger window. This old woman had parked so close to my car that she could reach her bony head over and knock on my window. I rolled it down and she immediately started demanding I move my car. I looked out my driver window and saw I was well within the lines. So, she'd encroached on me. Which I stated to her. But no, she demanded I reverse out so she could open her door. And yes, she used the fact that she was old and feeble as an excuse. Granted, she was really short, like 5 foot nothing or so as I saw when she later got out. But she looked to be in her 60s tops, and was far from feeble. I told her not a chance in hell, and she threatened to slam her door against mine if I didn't move my car. I said I'd be on the phone with police the second she tries that. Then pointed out that the parking lot likely has cameras if she tried to damage my car in any way. She looked at me with sheer hate in her eyes and I just closed the window. She stared at me like that the whole time I was eating. Thankfully I don't eat slow. After I was done I decided I'd walk into the supermarket and buy a beverage to drink at work. It was an especially hot day, and having a cold drink in the office fridge saved for later helps. I left my car and started heading into the store. The old woman started yelling at me to come back and move my car. I turned back once to point out to her that she was parked over the line. Meaning she was illegally parked. And if police were involved, they'd cite her first for her bad parking. She yelled at me some more, but I just kept walking and ignoring her. Well, she didn't like being ignored. She quickly got out through her passenger door somehow and yelled at me that I have no respect for my elders. I said back to her that respect isn't earned with age, and she didn't deserve any with the way she was acting. She dramatically scoffed and gave me the classic, "How dare you?" There were a few people watching and the old lady started yelling at them and saying that I was a disrespectful asshole of a man. But one person yelled at her to shut up and said they saw the whole thing. I didn't hear any more aside from loud yelling that I couldn't understand as I was fast walking into the store. I figured she'd follow me inside to try and make more trouble, as I've seen that sort of thing happen before. But she didn't bother me again. I came back a few minutes later with a whole case of bottled water so I could keep one at a time in the fridge at work, and the old lady's car was gone. There was no damage to my car, I checked. I don't know where she went, or if her intent was to just try and ruin someone's day. But nothing seemed to have happened. So, I thought nothing else of it and went back to work. I never saw her again. The last story is titled, "The Parking Lot is Scary." This happened a few weeks ago. My mom, 49 female, was taking me, 27 female, to work. We only have one car. It was about 4:30 a.m. and we were hungry since it had been over 12 hours since we last ate. We stopped by a local Denny's to order some pancakes and eggs. I went in since my mom has a bad knee. It took a few minutes for me to place my order, after which I sat on their waiting seats checking my phone. A woman came in and said she was picking up an order for, I believe, Uber Eats. Let me state this Denny's was incredibly difficult to get in and out of during the day because it's next to one of the busiest roads that frankly in the early morning, late at night is completely pitch black for whatever reason. All of a sudden, my mom texts me that some woman parked on the road and went in. I looked out the door and I can barely see her car from the light of the building. After another minute my mom walked into the door and asked the woman why she parked where she did. Why are you talking to me about where I parked? Mom. Because some guy on a bike just ran into the back of your car because he couldn't see it. I turned toward the door at that point and saw the cyclist getting up with his faint cell phone light on as he pedaled away. That sounds like the biker's issue. Mom. What the duck, you're the one parked illegally. Well, that parking lot is scary. At this point another guy that was waiting jumped in to defend the entitled woman. G. Why are you harassing a woman? What are you, police? Yeah, what are you, a traffic cop, Karen? G. Yeah, Karen, what is wrong with you? Mom. You can call me a Karen all you want, you're an entitled witch, along with him. I got up after this point and walked towards the back counters and flagged down the manager. Me. Excuse me, the woman sitting down is parked on the street in front of your doors and a guy on a bike ran into the back of it. Manager. Oh no, you said the woman sitting down? She's not supposed to park there, we told her before. Me. She told us that your parking lot is scary. Manager is giving a defeated sigh and an eye roll. I walk back towards the front where the three were still arguing and I said loudly, "Don't worry everyone, I was the Karen, I called for the manager." The manager walked out and handed food to the woman and said, "We told you before that you're not supposed to park there. It has caused many bad accidents that ended very poorly. If you're that terrified of our parking lot, just call and we will bring the food out to you." The woman took the food and walked out without another word other than ugly stares at us along with the guy. I want to note the parking lot is incredibly lit up, more so than the road. It's now an ongoing joke. Whenever we pass the parking lot in the morning we say, "Look at the scary parking lot." And the guy only jumped in because she was a conventionally attractive woman trying to earn brownie points. It was kind of sad, really. I don't know what happened to the bicyclist. He was nearly hit by a car when he ran into the back of her car. I know he cycled away while talking on his phone, presumably with the police. Edit. It was a bicyclist that hit her car. I said biker because that is what they literally said. Thank you for listening.